Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's an absolute pleasure to be here live. I am here live, and ChatGPT did not create my slides nor my text. So that's just a sense of a bit of reality. Absolutely beautiful panel. Actually, last week I was in Egypt, and I had no connection with the panel at all, nor the moderator. But the topics are very similar. And I'm here just to give a bit of banking perspective and a little bit more on what we've seen in other industries as well in terms of disruption, right? So I won't introduce, okay. Excellent. So what are we really talking about? Disruption, innovation, or evolution? And I think all three are at play at the same time, right? We have effects of disruption in terms of macroeconomics, war, inflation, change of regulation, change of technology that is disrupting. But meanwhile, we also have to continue to evolve and innovate to meet those demands and meet that change, okay? So let's look at some other industries, okay? So ride-hailing. Ride-hailing was disrupted, but is the base service still there, which is transport of a person from A to B for a fee? That continues. So the service is still there, but our interaction with the service has become tremendously different. It's become more secure. It's become on demand. You don't have to stand in the rain or the heat or whatever it is. You can specify, you can monitor your kids if they're taking what used to be called a taxi, now an Uber or anything else that's transporting us from A to B. So our interface through technology has changed quite substantially, but the service is still required, okay? Another such industry is the hotel industry or the travel industry. If we go back a few years, not disclosing my age, but we used to go to a travel agent to book travel. And that travel agent had 15 terminals, and they're only dealing with Emirates, Gulf Air, Swiss Air, Lufthansa, whatever. And then eventually they bought these terminals together, and even more, we now have it on the mobile, in Expedia or other access. But the airline is still there. The hotels are still there as a service. They have not eradicated. What has changed again is our interface and our services in interfacing with the airline industry or the hotel industry, right? We still continue to live a hybrid life between proprietary and public, right? So booking.com or Hilton.com, you still have the web access, you still have the mobile access. Now, what's the future going to bring us, okay? And that's the major change. So if we look at banking, so again, what's changing in the demographic and what are the disruptors? Right? So if we look, you have the brick and mortar is going away. Definitely the bank, and especially accelerated by pandemic, we went digital very quickly, right? The face-to-face, for SCB, we say digital with a human touch, because there's still requirement for a human touch, right? The digital services people are learning. We don't have access to the same technologies. We don't have the means of a data plan everywhere. You know, it's not the same. I operate in 25 markets. From east, it's Pakistan, all the way to Gambia, all the way down to South Africa. And I have areas that we struggle for diesel or power generation. We struggle for Wi-Fi coverage or 4G, 5G. The networks are not the same. So in different geographies, there are different needs. And that's what we have to be very cognizant of. The money system, the financial system. We heard the panel talk about crypto, and there's also central bank digital currencies that are emerging very quickly. Programmable money. These are all things that will come. But I like what Derek said in terms of use it, it's better, it's changing your service, but it's still at the core the same thing, right? So it's our interface that is changing, but the money system and the financial system and the controls have to still be there, right? When the crypto started, unregulated, it took off really quickly because of the lack of, the transparency between two payers and a payee and a payer. However, crossing the line between the two value systems is now becoming more difficult because the regulator wants the transparency of understanding where that money or where that value is crossing. Now, it's not money. It could be a digital coin, it could be a dollar, it could be a Bitcoin, it could be a Ethereum. But how do you control the flow between those two systems? So if I have Bitcoin and you are allowed to take my Bitcoin for a service, you provide me that service for a value. But the money system in governmental terms is still very much financial system denominated. Now, when and how is that regulation going to come, and how do banks experiment with it? This is something I'll talk about in a few minutes. So again, disruptors, pandemic, hyperinflation, financial literacy and inclusion, banking on equity, differently abled people, female diversity and inclusion in terms of female percentages in management and in the workforce. We aspire to drive it higher. In Standard Chartered, we're at 30%. Other banks in Pakistan are still at 9 and 10. So that diversity and inclusion agenda is pretty important to continue to drive. Moving on, again, transactions of the future, what will they bring? What will they look like, right? You have mobile is today's channel, of preference, right? We used to have laptops and internet, and you have to find the Wi-Fi connection. Now it's much easier. It's at your fingertips. Tomorrow, could there be a easier, better, faster device where you think of a transfer and it happens? Maybe. But right now, it's still at our fingertips in the mobile. And a lot of technology is evolving towards that, right? So edge compute, getting more substance in the hands of a user and getting it more on the compute at the edge is something we're all struggling with in terms of bandwidth, in terms of development, in terms of software, new software in the hands of everybody. And that's part of that disruption. So the next big thing is partnerships. So how do we deliver banking to mass, right? Traditionally, there was a huge unbanked population that is becoming banked. Now, is it becoming banked in a wallet? Is it becoming banked in a bank? Or is it becoming banked with a telco? At the end of the day, a bank is storing value, and you have access to that value when you need it, to transfer it, to pay for something, and that's continuing to evolve. So we are still progressing. Our workforce is changing as well. If you think about technology, it's not only in the currency and that, but robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. There's eradication of certain types of jobs. And we talked about Pakistan's youth and reinventing themselves and reskilling. That's going to be extremely important to continue. On the client side, younger clients, conscious buying, sustainability, net zero, these are huge initiatives, right? We see the floods here in Pakistan. How are we going to get safety from those items, right? And the only way is to work as a global community towards a net zero agenda. And those are not easy steps. I don't want to bore you with a lot of PowerPoint, but of course, the technologies are changing. We all heard the names, blockchain, AI, machine learning, blockchain, distributed ledger, so on and so forth. Regulation, extremely important, right? What's the regulator? How are they going to protect the consumer? And remember, the consumer lines are growing because the banking service is for a lot more people than it used to be. So in terms of regulation, there's an extreme importance for transparency. Financial crime compliance, fraud is on the rise. Cyber is getting more and more complex. So regulator is worried because you can siphon off the value very quickly, especially if you're not aware how that value system or trust is established in new financial systems, let's call them, or value systems. That's me growing old, I guess, a little bit of a beard. No, but the risks are pertinent, right? The risks are pertinent between identity theft, cyber, the whole point of data privacy and sovereignty, the geopolitical scene, where do you store your data, who has access to data. These are extremely pertinent items that we all need to think about. The pace of change and delivery through different models. A bank used to be, you look at it as a safe, as a trusted safe. And now that trusted safe is a whole bunch of, little boxes. Sorry. Thank you. 5 minutes. So they're now little boxes in many different people's hands, delivering value and services to different parts of the economy. How do you keep the same controls, right? So when we develop software in a bank, the regulator says, they're not a bank, they're your third party, you should manage that risk. And therefore, their standards, the partner standards, whether they're fintechs or whether they are front-end or KYC providers, we have to assure that from that sense. So the risks are very pertinent, and I think everybody, whether we're going to talk about new technology, adoption of new technology is a risk. How you do change management is a risk. And the governing controls around the financial systems is the evolution that we need to manage, okay? So in short, we have a few things. How do you innovate on the edge? From a Standard Chartered perspective, how do you innovate on the edge and protect your core, okay? So what we've done is we've created a Standard Chartered Ventures company that invests and develops what we call entrepreneurs that have products that can serve the bank around lending, servicing, even crypto custody. We've gotten into it. I used to be in British American Tobacco, and we were disrupted by what we call heat not burn or vape. Everybody now is holding some sort of lollipop, but it's electronic. And the heat not burn is a technology, but the cigarette is still there as well, right? Different economies, different requirements, different price points. So does the industry eradicate? No, not at the pace we think it's going to go. We'd love to say renewables and net zero, but I also used to work in oil and gas. So that's disrupted by the net zero agenda in terms of carbon and carbon emissions and so on and so forth. But that industry is still going to be there for quite some time, right? It's an evolution rather than a change and a disruption of today. Okay. Other things we do, we have women in tech programs. We have the Goal program, which develops young female talent into schooling and other things. We focus on net zero. We're exiting. There's a program of exiting carbon and funding more renewables. So it's really great to be part of that journey. So thank you very much. I will give back a few minutes. Thanks.